This October, Oni Press and Spectravision are proud to present High Strangeness, a startling new 5-part experiment in comic book storytelling.
Inspired by first-hand accounts of real paranormal encounters within the dimly lit borderlands of human experience, each 40-page prestige format chapter of High Strangeness will interrogate overlapping phenomena like UFOs, hauntings, cryptid sightings, and inexplicable synchronicities that together seem to indicate a higher, unseen order of reality.
Teaming Spectravision co-founder and real-life experiencer Daniel Noah with an otherworldly cast of comic talents, including Christopher Cantwell, Cecil Castellucci, good friend of the show Christian Ward, and more. High Strangeness Book 1 arrives on October 8th to investigate a 1967 encounter with the strange beings known as the Men in Black, with superstar writer Chris Condon, Ringo Award-winning artist Dave Chisholm, and cover artist Jock.
Look for High Strangeness Book 1 on shelves October 8th at a local comic shop near you. Only from Oni Press.
Hey, this is Zack, Quaintance, the writer of the Death of Comics bookcase, and you are listening to the Oblivion Bar podcast.
Welcome to the Oblivion Bar podcast with your host, Chris Hacker and Aaron Knowles.
Joining me today is the writer of 2024's The Death of Comics Bookcase Volume 1 and the current Grindhouse Texas horror comic Macabre Valley No. 1 with artist Anna Redman. He is also a well-respected journalist in the comic space and the voice behind the previous The Comics Bookcase, and is the site reviews editor at the recently Eisner Award-winning The Comics Beat. It is my pleasure to welcome my friend Zack Quaintance onto the Oblivion Bar podcast.
Hey, man. Thanks for saying well-respected. I'm a journalist. I appreciate that.
The name Quaintance is heard long and wide amongst comic fans, so I will say it so you don't have to.
It's better than like the infamous, like something like that.
The dreaded.
Yeah. The scoundrel.
That's right. Yeah, real so-and-so. Zack, thank you so much for joining us here. Very, very excited to get into Macabre Valley, but I think we need to do a little bit of housekeeping before we actually get into your current Kickstarter, which is already funded. So it's fun to still talk about it. And of course, we're going to keep broadcasting it from not only, I know you're going to, but also on our social medias. And we're going to continue to tell folks to go check it out. But I need to ask you because, I think it happens more than I'd like to admit, but I think you and I have very, aligned interest. I often look to you when it comes to things that you're into. You'll post like a dump on Instagram or on Letterboxd or what have you. And I'm like, oh, if Zach's checking this out, I probably should give it a look because I think we have a lot of similar sort of, favorites in that sense. So I've seen a couple movies here recently and I want to sort of get your read on it and sort of get your views. First up, and I know because I've seen you post about it, PTA is one battle after another. I have to ask you, being, and I use this term in sort of a joking way, but being a cinephile, in a way that I think that I am as well, where like we love it, but we're not going to like be pretentious about it. How did you see it? What were your thoughts overall? Like all the things.
So I saw it on IMAX, but not IMAX film. And it's been like sticking with me. It's like a source of major regret. So I'm going to see it again next week on 70 millimeter IMAX to rectify this. But yeah, I saw it opening night. I had tickets I think I logged on a few hours after they went on sale, but it's New York City, so there's only one 70 millimeter IMAX, and I got beat. But I knew I would like this movie because I not only am a huge PTA fan, but also Thomas Pynchon. And then adding another layer to it, it was filmed partially in Sacramento, where I have lived, and partially in El Paso, where my wife is from. So there was just a lot going for this movie in terms of me liking it. And lo and behold, I absolutely loved it. 5 stars. And like I said, going to see it again.
5 stars. Wow. I'm sort of happy to hear that because as I've talked to people about it, I think people are still, and maybe it's sort of the pessimistic world that we currently live in and the apprehension to sort of quickly give it that near perfect, if not perfect score. And that's the sort of world, the letterbox world that we live in, where we have to give everything a rating. And I'm guilty of that too. But walking out of it, I almost immediately knew that this was probably my favorite movie of the year. And that's saying, I think, quite a bit. We've had in sort of this weird landscape that we currently live in with film, and I'll say art is sort of a larger spectrum, but like specifically in the world of film, it's been a pretty good year. I think there's been a couple stinkers here and there, but for the most part, I feel like most of the movies that I've been excited for delivered. And, I think one battle after another. We went to go see it we went 70 millimeter here at the Indiana State Museum. And we actually had Chase Infinity's parents sitting below us.
No way. That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. She went to Lawrence North here in Indiana. She eventually graduated high school, went to Chicago for acting school, made her way out west, and then eventually ended up in a Paul Thomas Anderson film within I want to say the first 5 years of her career.
Yeah. I think it's the second. I think she was in an Apple TV show. Who knows? Because you never hear about those things.
They just sort of come and go.
Yeah, there's so many of them, and they don't get promoted. But
Right.
I think this is like the second thing she's been in, and yeah, it's like probably the second lead in a PTA movie. Pretty incredible.
Right. No, absolutely. And I'm like working across Leonardo DiCaprio and Benicio del Toro and Sean Penn and all these folks. Like, it's incredible what she's able to do. And I'm just curious, and it's okay if you haven't thought of this, but like, where do you feel like this lands in your PTA? I mean, obviously he's done so many great movies. Where do you think this might land for you?
Yeah, I definitely have thought about this because like you pointed out, we are those kind of letterbox guys, do that sort of thing. And I was like, what?
Letterboxers.
Yeah. But I haven't I'm the type of person who's like, before I do this, I should probably rewatch every PTA movie and then make my decision.
Right.
But it's definitely top tier. Like, I think it's one of his more accessible movies that just because of the way it's paced and the way it grabs you so quickly. And it's also very funny. Like, he didn't get funny until the latter half of his career. Like, There Will Be Blood and Magnolia do not have laughs. But this movie is very it has some real laughs in it. And so I think for being the type of movie that you could enjoy with most people and kind of rewatch, and I expect to have big rewatchability. I think it's top five, if not top three. I don't know. Have you done that math yet?
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't know if I've solidified. I should have probably, if I'm going to ask the question, but I want to say Boogie Nights, I think, is still number one for me. Boogie Nights is the top 3 movie of all time. And then I want to say The Master, which has surprised some people. I was talking to our friend and co-host of the Comic Book Couples Counseling, Brad Gullickson, and he's like, and I need to get him on the show to talk about this at some point, but he said he's not really been a big fan of the latter half of PTA's career, sort of like the Punch Drunk Love, or maybe even Magnolia on sort of career that Paul has had. And I'm curious because The Master, I think, is almost a near perfect movie. And I want to say One Battle After Another is close between that and Magnolia, or maybe There Will Be Blood. No, it's Magnolia. I think it's either Magnolia or One Battle After Another. And I'm leaning towards One Battle After Another as number 3.
Yeah. I'm with you on Boogie Nights with number 1. And then from there, it gets a little fuzzy.
Yeah.
I really like There Will Be Blood. I think that's kind of a masterpiece, just the intensity of it and the acting. But I'm with you on The Master as well. I think it's a beautiful movie. It's the best looking. He has a incredible eye. I feel like he's one of those directors where you can tell 30 seconds into the trailer that this is a Paul Thomas Anderson film, just the way things are framed. And even for his stuff, The Master is another level of good looking movie. But yeah, I think you are a lot of people don't have that one close to the top for him.
Yeah, and I think I might be biased because of the Philip Seymour Hoffman. I think that's probably it's hard to say what his best role ever was, but that's gotta be in contention for one of his greatest.
Yeah, I agree. I do this. I've done this thing since he passed. Whenever I watch a PTA movie, try to figure out what role he might play and make myself sad about it.
I need to feel something. I need to put in a Philip Seymour Hoffman movie.
Yeah.
Okay, so again, while I have you here, I have to get you before we get into Macabre Valley and all the other things. But Weapons has come out this year. Centers, of course, being a big film fan, I'm sure you're a fan of all those things. We don't have to necessarily go in depth since we're a little bit beyond those, but those, of course, were 2 masterful movies that also surprised at the box office and all the things. So I'm just curious if you could, I was going to sort of ask you what your thoughts were on each film, but Is there any movie that you've seen this year outside of One Battle After Another that has really sort of wowed you almost in the same sort of breath as One Battle After Another? Like, is there another near perfect movie that you've seen this year? And if there is, can you sort of explain what that viewing experience was like for you?
Yeah, I don't know if I'd go. I don't know if I'd go near perfect for these others, but I think collectively on the whole, it's been a really good year for movies, and I've had a really good time watching them at the movies. Like every couple of weeks, there's something like Sinners or Weapons or Superman even that just feel like movie experiences in the way we had it. And even I would even put Naked Gun in there for how it brought back studio comedy, which I hadn't seen like that in quite a while. And so I think like holistically, it feels like a near perfect year at the movies, like just the variety of it and the genre stuff being particularly strong. Like Weapons and Sinners, maybe less so with Sinners, is definitely steeped in horror genre across the board, you know?
It also kind of has like that grindhouse feel a little bit, you know, maybe that's just me, but it kind of feels like it has a bit of that grindhouse, which we'll get into here in just a bit. Not necessarily in terms of like the self-awareness sort of campy. And I don't even know if I'm really describing grindhouse correctly, but that's sort of the, you know,
that's right.
The cigarette burn of it all, like that kind of feel. But it does kind of have like sort of like raunchy horror to it, that vibe, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. I think people are doing really interesting things. Like they've taken those vibes and Sinners and Weapons in particular and made them very thoughtful. Like to say movies are political is kind of a loaded thing to say, but they make you think about and One Battle After Another as well. Really make like they hit harder in this moment because of how thoughtful they are about everything that's happening, and they're not afraid to use genre to do it and to use camp and over the top gore and that sort of thing. So I've definitely enjoyed that because that's kind of my thing as well.
Yeah, we definitely see that, you know, again, in your work that we'll talk about here in a bit. I think One Battle After Another and Sinners, I think perfectly sort of play in that same, they're trying to have that same conversation that I think you're trying to have as well with Macabre Valley and so on. So before we get into that, and I know I keep teasing it, but like I need to take us back to a big moment for you earlier this year at San Diego Comic-Con. We actually had a chance to see each other for a quick moment there. I know we're, you know, being that we're both doing specific things at well, I will say like conventions. We're about a couple days away from New York Comic-Con now, and we'll probably be doing the same exact thing then, but like especially at San Diego as well, where, you know, I'm doing the comic sketch art thing and I'm hosting Whatnot shows with creators, and of course you're doing your comics beat thing, and also as a writer trying to get that work out there. I'm sure that you're packed to the gills with, you know, these are sort of like work trips for you even. So I'm just curious. Let's go back to San Diego for a quick moment, because while I was there at the Eisners there in the beginning, I was there for probably the first maybe 45 minutes. I eventually had to leave for another event, and I missed the fact that the Comics Beat won an Eisner for comics journalism. So I need you to, if you can, replay that sort of moment for me and for the listener, and sort of tell us what that moment meant for you and the entire team with Heidi and everyone, and just you know, all the hard work you guys have been doing for comics journalism with the Beat and all that, and yeah, just sort of cover that for us.
It was incredibly meaningful in a way that sort of surprised me, because so for people who don't know, the Beat has been around for 20 some years. It celebrated its 20th anniversary last year, and it's never won an Eisner. It's been nominated a couple times, but it's never won. And so you don't want to get excited about these things in case you lose, just like, you know, basic psychology. Like, you don't want to be the person who's like, I lost. Like, you want to be like, I'm happy for the people who won. So you don't want to get too excited. But so I was just kind of like, it'll be fun to get to sit at the tables up front, because the Eisners are like, there's a hierarchy. The nominees and the other fancy folks get to sit at actual tables.
They wall you off with the food. Like all the peons sit behind the food, and all the guests sit in front of the food.
You can smell it, but you can't eat it. Like,
that's right.
And so that's where I've always been traditionally at the Eisners. I've been back with the prole.
That's right.
So I was thinking like, it'll just be cool to get the free dinner and to sit up there and to be close. But as it got closer, I was sitting right next to Heidi, and she created the Beat. She's the one person who's contributed to it throughout its entire existence, start to finish. And she's done an incredible job keeping it independent of these clickbait companies like Valnet that buy these sites and hollow them out and don't contribute to comics at a certain point. So she's done incredible work passing up money and just keeping the beat alive. And so as the night progressed, I could tell she was nervous and that it would mean a lot to her to win. And then at that point, it started to become more meaningful to be like, well, to have helped her kind of achieve that would really be something. And then we won, and I thought she gave a really fantastic speech. And it was like San Diego before and after was a different thing. After we won, it was all smiles and everybody was congratulating us and stuff. So like the beat doesn't have a lot of resources. There's not a lot of money. But being part of that and being at the ceremony was all the payment I think I'll ever need for contributing to the beat. So
yeah, you've often said this really cool thing that I admittedly have stolen from you, like red-handed. And I try to give you the credit when I think of it, but you often say that like comics deserve our participation. And when you told me that last time we talked here on the show to talk about the Death of Comics bookcase, it was almost like an epiphany. Like I had this like weird moment where I was like, yeah. Like if we love this thing or anything, not just comics, but just like anything that we love that does not get the proper representation or has a lot of bad actors within it, we have to be the ones to put that good out there and be the ones to sort of be its champion, because we can't expect other people to do that. I mean, we could expect that other people do that, but no one should. Like we should be the people, right? So what you guys have done with the beat, and again, Heidi, I think is the mascot of that, all that. She has solidified herself as comics legend because of what she has done with the beat. And again, she couldn't do it alone. It's all of you guys that are doing this on a volunteer basis or are being paid very little because you love the medium and the industry.
Yeah. I think going back to what you're saying, like, yeah, comics has a thing where it is uniquely positioned where it needs help to be better. Like in most facets of it, where it just needs people to give it a little push with arguably to sacrifice to do it. And so if you really do love it, you have that unique opportunity to be able to step in and help this thing you love, which you don't like. No matter how much I love movies, there's probably nothing I can do materially to help movies, like besides buy a ticket and a Blu-ray. But with comics, it's very different. It's accessible. Like the barrier for entry is smaller, and the industry struggles. Like it struggles to get what you and I would consider its due, or what it for people to understand how great it is. And so, yeah, that's what I'm always talking about. Like you can uniquely in comics make a difference. And so you should, what was the other part of what was the second part? It was about the beat.
Yeah. It was mostly just the fact that you guys are sort of her entourage with all this, while she is, like, again, as you said, been with this thing since the very beginning. I think she would, if she was here, she would admit that she couldn't do it without all of you as well.
No question. I mean, like, she's the face. Like, we couldn't do it without her either. Like, like, she's the face of it. And what she does is people respect us because they know her and they respect her. And also, Heidi just has, like, one of the challenges I would run into when I was sort of doing my own comics journalism is just all the sort of challenge, the like rapid fire challenges you have to deal with, the criticisms, the inability to get access, and all these things. And Heidi has incredibly thick skin and has a long-term view. So, like, she knows where the crisis of the day sort of ranks and doesn't overreact to it the way I might as a newer leader of something like that. And so, like, she keeps the ship steady, and then we do the day-to-day. That's kind of how it functions. Everybody has their role to play, and hopefully it's not always true, but hopefully we're all moving in the same direction. So last year it lined up, and I think we had a really good year, and I think we did deserve the recognition. So that was very nice. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. I think that the Comics Beat team and the site itself should be recognized for the awesome work that you guys do, because I know when I'm preparing for the show, and I would like to think that we're like, I wouldn't say respected outlet, but someone that we're a show that people go to when they want to hear, Danny Earls talk about something, or, like when they want to hear creators talk. When I'm looking for resources, the Beat is among one of the very first, if not the only resource that I use based on your guys' review or coverage or what have you. So I don't know if that really means anything, but that's what I do, you know?
Don't sell yourself short, because you are a top tier interviewer. Like, that is a skill that like in real time to do the research you do and to be quick with the thoughtful questions don't undercut your own abilities there. But I appreciate you saying that about the beat, that we help you out with your getting a handle on things. Yeah.
Well, thank you. I appreciate the compliment as well. But I need to ask you something as well. We're sort of on the topic of the beat, and then we'll get into Macabre Valley. And it is, and I apologize if this is sort of a gotcha journalism question, but is there anybody at the beat that you're really excited about? Like, is there a new writer, reviewer, what have you, someone that you think people should be paying attention to in terms of like when they post something within the beat that you think people should be like really checking out?
Well, I think it kind of comes down to what you're into. Like, Ricky Serrano does a fantastic job with the horror beat section, and it's such an incredible, varied section of different horror, like not just comics. Like, it gets into TV, movies, and all that kind of stuff. I mean, we've had some new reviewers come in. Like, I'm gonna leave people out, so that's the hard part. But like, Carrie Weinberg writes excellent reviews. Arped Lepp is a great resource for comics you might otherwise miss. Like, it's Catherine Hemen, whose name I've never had to say out loud to this moment, so I apologize, Catherine, if that's not right. But she's been a newer reviewer who she brings me stuff that, like, I've given her carte blanche at this point to review whatever she wants, because I know it's going to be good, and she has a great eye for finding stuff people should know about, which I think is one of the reviewer skills that I appreciate most, is like helping people find things that they should know about, and she does a great job with that. So yeah, I mean, Jared Bird is a great enthusiastic contributor to our weekly Wednesday columns. All those guys who contribute to that, Clyde Hall, Jordan Jennings, Tim Rooney, like, they all just do a great job. And they do it without a lot of thanks. So I should thank them more. So
well, I'm sure
thank you for giving me the opportunity to do that.
Of course. Yeah. And I knew that, and I appreciate you saying that. I knew that going through that, like, if someone was like, hey, Chris, what's a bunch of shows that you really like listening to, podcasts you like listening to? I know there'd be somebody that I would leave off, and it doesn't mean that I don't respect them. It's just the fact that you kind of have to cut it off at some point.
Well, I've got like 20 reviewers who contribute, and they're all good. And I apologize if I left anyone off. But there's a lot of them.
Last question about the comics journalism stuff. Is there, and I hate to give someone any free pub, you know, but is there any other site that you're often impressed by when it comes to people who just cover comics in a really cool and interesting and productive way?
I mean, the people hanging in there and still doing it across the board, I think, deserve credit. I think what's happened as the comics media ecosystem has contracted is, like, the people still here are all in it because they love it so much. So like. I mean, David Harper was Sketched, has been, like, that's now his full-time job, which I think is going to be a good thing for comics. I mean, I read the Comics Journal, like, I read their reviews.
So great. Yeah, they're awesome.
And then even Publishers Weekly, like, they do these little capsule reviews, and I think it's really hard to be as interesting and evaluate things as well as they do and be that concise. So I think Meg Lemke edits the reviews over there and does a great job. And then, I mean, the interview podcasts are like, because comics, it's like being at a con when you get to listen to all these great interviews you all do and to hear the creators talk about their work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel like a little bit of a fraud whenever we talk about this kind of stuff. And again, this isn't me trying to fish for compliments here, Zach, but when I think of journalists, it's funny. I don't even like, because we're not, firstly, but I don't even like think of the Oblivion Bar's journalism, because we're not on even the same tier of like Brad and Lisa. Like, they are journalists, in my opinion. You know, what you do is journalism. What we are, the way I sort of view it, and it's not me trying to like escape responsibility, because, you know, you'll have some people out there who have like this large following and they'll go, oh, well, I'm not a personality. I'm not a journalist. So I can say whatever I want, do whatever I want. Usually you see that in politics a lot, or with movies or whatever. But I think from our perspective, I think we're just a couple of dopes who love comics and like want to have a fun, interesting conversation about them. And when it comes, because I think journalism takes a lot more work than whatever we're doing here. So while I don't think that what we do here is nothing, it's like, I don't know if I necessarily, and I'm not saying you said this either, but like, I don't know what we do here is, necessarily journalism,
I feel that like, I used to do more reported pieces about comics. I don't do those so much. So I kind of feel the same way you do. Like, I feel like I run the review section like I would a conversation, a set of conversation. Like I'm having a conversation at a comic book store about something I liked or didn't like. Like that's how I kind of approach it. So that doesn't feel like journalism. Like journalism can feel like a high and mighty thing, right? Like that you have to be holding people to account and stuff. I don't do that in comics. Some people do, but
Tom King, why did you write this about Wonder Woman?
yeah. you know that's not her characterization. Like,
well, actually, if you go back to George Perez's run, whatever. Yeah, that whole thing.
I don't do that kind of stuff. I'll even write a review if there's one super interesting thing in a comic. I'll be like, I'm just going to write about how they use the dog for 500 words, and that's this review, because that's what I think the most interesting thing is. Like, so I feel you on that. I feel the same way, but I think people do treat both of us as media and journalists. So, if you get treated that way long enough, you are one. So that's how it works.
If it gets me a free pass to New York Comic Con, I'm cool with it.
Yeah.
Call me whatever you want.
I've got mine right here. Press pass, 4-day press pass. Yeah.
Sorry. One more question popped into my brain. I have to ask you, as someone who I think is, very knowledgeable about the industry and especially the medium and everything that you've done with the Comics Bookcase and the Beat and with your writing, why not podcasting? We're sitting here talking about how I think there's obviously a lot of work that goes into podcasting, but I feel like if there is someone out there who has done enough in our space, has done enough important work in our space, that would be a sure fit into sort of the podcasting landscape, especially among our peers. Again, with like David over at Off Panel and Brad and Lisa with Comic Book Helps Counseling, Botter over at the Short Box, and so on. Like, has that ever even crossed your mind to like maybe possibly either create a podcast or partner up with someone else who's been on a podcast?
It's crossed my mind. Like when I was doing Comics Bookcase in particular, it was always a thing. Like I knew if I would have done a podcast with the website, it would have got me a bigger audience. And so it did feel like I should do that. But quite frankly, I just don't know how. Like I didn't want to buy the equipment and learn the sound editing. I've always been a writer. Like I went to college for journalism. That's my day job as well. So like writing for media is something I'm deeply comfortable with. Learning to do like sound tests and everything that comes along with audio is not something I'm comfortable with at all. So I mean, I have at times like especially when I was doing Comics Bookcase, get invites to be on other people's podcasts to just talk about favorite comics of the year or whatever. And I always appreciate those and enjoy that. But like, yeah, it just seemed like something I was out of my depth with. And I've always thought like, I'll just work harder and write better. And so that'll be what I do with my time. But yeah, sure. Maybe I should have started 1 year ago. I don't know.
Well, I'll tell you, I do appreciate your role within, this sort of the scope that we're in currently with comics, because we need more folks out there who are, again, we need to protect comics journalists and we need to protect journalism as a whole to make sure that, again, as you said, we don't have these sites that are coming in here and swooping up comics journalist sites and hollowing them out and just putting ads all over them and making them about clickbait bullshit. Like we have enough of that already. And I want people who are willing, again, like yourself and like David over at Sketched, who are like willing to write these 5,000, I'm not saying that you do this often, but like write these 5,000 word plus post about ARF, the Tradmore Spider-Man story or something like that, like just like that sort of in-depth, and I'm not even, again, like you said, like not even like criticism necessarily, but just sort of like an introspective or, the way that you sort of interpret it. It creates this conversation within our space that is really interesting and something that I think we don't have enough of already. So to like take your talents away from writing, both in journalism and as a comic writer, maybe to podcasting is maybe, like you said, maybe that's just not your role within all this.
Yeah, I feel like it would have watered everything down for me a little bit. Mm-hmm. But yeah, what I want to be able to do, like I got a chance to do it, I feel like this year when I wrote one of the first reviews of Jerome, And I don't know if this is true. It's just a sense I have that like it kind of helped set the conversation around Jesse Lonergan's Drome being one of the books of the year. Like it gave it, Jesse said it gave it momentum. He's a very nice guy. He could have just been telling me that. But like, so I just want to be in a position when I read something that really, really blows me away and I think should be one of these books that everybody knows about and hears about, to be able to write something about it and have a platform that gives it that kind of push to get it to more readers. And I feel like, I do that with the Beat, and so that's been a part of the goal to be able to like people. I don't know. This is probably an old person reference at this point, but people rag on Pitchfork Music for being like snobby reviews and that sort of thing. But I always kind of wanted to be like, comics should have its Pitchfork Music somehow, like something like that.
Yeah, we just talked to Jesse 2 weeks ago about Drome, and yeah, totally. It is absolutely, I think, one of the books of the year, if not the book of the year thus far. And I can actually see it on your bookcase behind you there.
Yeah. That's my shelf for stuff lately that's really blown me away. Like that's come out in the last 5, maybe 6 years. And Drome, I had to move some things around to make room for Drome on it.
Yeah. And I see it's so I can see Ducks there as well. Is that Murder Falcon there on the far left?
No, that's Upgrade Soul.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah. And then I've got A Guest in the House, the new Noah Van Sciver book, and a couple of My Favorite Things Are Monsters. And then the Blood of the Virgin, the Sammy Harkonnen book from last year. It's like a 70s Hollywood thing. I thought that book was awesome. Yeah. Have you
read, and this is the last thing I'll say before we get to your
No,
book.
I really don't mind. Like, this is great.
Have you read Will McPhail's In?
Yes. Yeah. So I have a story about that. I got that book. Sometimes like my home address is like circulated by comics publicists, like they know where I live.
They're tracking your location right now.
I've probably given it to them and forgotten or whatever, but like sometimes books will just show up at my house. And that one showed up at my house maybe like 2 months before it came out. I'd never heard of Will McPhail, even though he's a New Yorker cartoonist. And it looked awesome. I read it and I was like, this book is amazing. Like this book is so good. And I like before it came out, got to talk to him on Zoom because it was like dark heart of the pandemic times, and but I feel like that was when I was still doing my site. And that was kind of like one of the reasons maybe that pushed me towards the Beat is I felt like I didn't have that platform I was talking about to like get the conversation started around this book, even though I heaped all this praise on it. And I would also put Jonathan Case's Little Monarchs in that category. I love that book and tried to get a conversation going. And I feel like it just didn't quite get the momentum for what it may, but anyway, back to In, like, I think it's a masterpiece. It's like the first sequential comics I think he's ever done. And I just think it's a perfect book. It's funny. It's deeply moving. And it's like, he's really honest in that book in a way that someone who hasn't written a lot of fiction, it's very impressive that he figured out a way to do that in a fictional story.
This is the first time I think when reading comics that something was competing with Saga in my head. Like for the longest time, so like I have the same thing over with movies to bring us back to that too. Like Whiplash has been my favorite movie since the moment I saw it. Yeah. It's had that number one spot. And I've like almost cemented it in my brain that this is my favorite and nothing will compete with it. And maybe that's reductive to do something like that. But Saga is the same thing. For some I read, I was like, holy fuck, this is the greatest book of all time and nothing will ever beat it. And then, I read In on a plane to a work trip. And Zach, when I tell you that I was crying and laughing in that 2-hour plane, like back and forth, laughing, crying, back to back. And I'm not someone who I'm not saying that I never like emote when I'm reading or watching movies or anything, but like this movie captured me in a way that I have never felt. I agree with you. I will just echo what you said. It is a masterpiece. And I think it is maybe like the 1B favorite comic of all time for me. And it's a book that it would be like my pleasure to buy it for someone to give it to them.
Yeah. Multiple times maybe. Like it's that good. Like I think you can compartmentalize it in your head and just say that Saga and In play different games, right? Because one of them's long form and the other is you can read in an afternoon, if you need to do that in your head.
They definitely play like very different roles, although I will say they do a lot of the same similar things in terms of like emotional beats and such. But
and honesty and
Well, let's get into Macabre Valley. Again, this is outside of us just having this great talk for the last 30 minutes, which is kind of what I selfishly wanted.
Me too, man.
It's
I
also,
really don't mind.
right. It's one of those things where it's like it's a two-way street here, because I also want to talk about Macabre Valley, which is your current Kickstarter over again at Kickstarter. It's a sort of a build off of a story that you had within the Death of Comics bookcase, which I actually have right here. And it was the last time that you were here on the show was to talk about this. And when I look through the Death of Comics bookcase, this conversation gave me a well-needed reason to go back and look at Comics bookcase again. And I'm looking through it again, and I'm seeing like, Gold Mask and the next door, Apes versus Sharks. And then I think what might have been my favorite the first time reading this was Responsibility. And I'm like, okay, so Zack clearly had a plan when it comes to expanding on these stories. I know even when we had you on last time, you mentioned that you had plans to eventually, continue on with a couple of these stories. I'm just curious to start us off here. And actually, before I get into my question, I'm going to do a quick synopsis here. A young reporter gets a job covering the night cops beat at a newspaper in South Texas. When a Border Patrol agent is gruesomely murdered, our hero must untangle a violent mystery with a beloved local priest and a werewolf at its dark center. So I'm just curious, why Macabre Valley? Why this priest grindhouse horror story to sort of be that first story that you go off and tell more with?
That one was always conceptualized as a full comic book series from the start. Every other story in there, I had already had the idea for Death of Comics bookcase to do a collection of these, and were written to be something bigger. Like they're all built to continue, but the introductions were capsules, so like they were all short stories. But Macabre Valley, which at the time was called The Werewolf Priest in that book, was not. Like it was intended to be the first 8 pages of a longer story. It was actually, we did as a pitch in early 2023. So it was conceived that way. It was always the hope that one would be something larger, and we always had a larger story to tell with it. And I don't play favorites, but I think all the stories in that book turned out good. But like those 8 pages, I mean, it just felt like there was an energy to it where I was like, I felt like we'd be doing a disservice to not try to do more of this one way or another. So, and I started writing it like the full, like I'd written a pitch and an outline, kind of a story beat outline. And then as the campaign for Death of Comics bookcase was happening in like May of 2024, I finished the first issue script and have been refining it until Anna had time in her schedule to start this year. So it was just one that I really wanted to come back to. And like we're doing more of everything that was in Death of Comics bookcase. Like I've literally written more of everything in there except Apes versus Sharks, which I'm writing right now. And I know what it's going to look like, but I just haven't finished the script for the next chapter of that. So
sure.
Yeah.
You've had this really admirable amount of patience, I think, since putting out, I think even before Death of Comics, I was going to say since you put out Death of Comics bookcase, but I know that this has been going on for quite a while, you working on these multiple stories and such. And I know if it was me, I would be so quick to just like find a line and just run down that lane, but it seems like you sort of have your hand, like you said, in a couple different, stories and how you want to approach each one. You said you've even worked on a pitch for Macabre Valley as well. I'm just curious, with the Kickstarter and it already funding, as we said earlier in the conversation, this thing has fully funded, and that doesn't mean people shouldn't go out and also support it still, because we want to hit those stretch goals and we want to, all those things. Like the more you contribute, the more that you can do with this project. I know that you've said before that like this thing is finished and ready to go. It's going to print the moment that it funds. But like, I'm just curious, doing all these multiple stories all at the same time and Macabre Valley already being successful, is there anything within you that wants to hop on the next one, like in a couple, have another Kickstarter ready in the chamber, ready to go when Macabre Valley eventually successfully funds? Or do you feel like now that you've seen sort of the excitement around this story and people talking about it the way they are, do you have any impulse to want to just sort of stick down this grindhouse road for a while?
I mean, the answer is yes to both. Like,
Sure.
like, I do want to, I mean, I would love to have something new coming out constantly, like to have these comics I've written, and some of them have art done for available rapidly. But I think from a business standpoint, I don't think that doing more than a Kickstarter a year is a good idea for audience retention. Like, I know that I don't tend to back too many creators who do multiple Kickstarters in the same calendar year, just because part of what you're paying for with Kickstarter is you pay a higher price for these comics because you get the good feeling of supporting and bringing it, being part of something that makes it possible. So I don't want to. I really am deeply aware of that, and I appreciate it, and I don't want to ask people to back more than one Kickstarter a year. I mean, there's people who do tons of Kickstarters and do great, and I don't fault them for that. But just for me, with audience building, I could be totally wrong about this, but I feel like one a year is the cadence. But yeah, like, so I'll tell you straight up, like, the initial plan was to kickstart Macabre Valley and then go right into next year's Kickstarter being Death of Comics Bookcase Volume 2, Reign of the Comics Bookcases. And there's a cover that we've got into inks with, and there's a story that has complete art with, it's a brand new story. I maybe have shown you some of the art.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you showed me a little bit at San Diego Comic-Con.
It's like a wrestling thing with comic book creators. That's the way.
Yep.
Yeah.
There's a parallel there that we often see. Like, comic creators, I don't know if people listening know this, but like, there's like a large amount of comic creators that also really love wrestling.
There's that, and there's a lot of comic. Yeah, there's a weird tension sometimes at comic book conventions between creators. Like, not that people hate each other, but there's definitely, like, I don't know, if you go to enough cons, you pick up on like weird things. And so that's what this is playing with. It's all in good fun, and I think it's gonna be really funny. But after this, like, this Kickstarter has been well received. And I'm hoping that it sets a backer record that's like a personal thing. Like, I would really love to set a new backer record, but I think it's been easier for me to talk about and kind of market a one story versus 6 at the same time, you know, like, and find an audience for it. So there's definitely like well, do I want to go into another anthology right away? Cause that's more of it feels like a steeper climb, or do I want to do more Macabre Valley, or even like a one shot with this wrestling idea? So like,
Sure.
So there's things to figure out. But I have so much to do right now between getting, like, the story is done for Macabre Valley, but I'm working with a designer who's actually Jared K. Fletcher, who designed Paper Girls and is like just one of the best designers. And like, we're working together, exchanging emails this week to finish up. I mean, he has to design. There's 4 or 5 pages that need design touches and the back cover and stuff. So we're finishing all that stuff up and getting it to print. And then I'm also trying to market it as best I can, because the point where you fund is not always the point of profitability. I'll just say that. So you have some
thanks,
skin
Kickstarter.
It's not, I mean, I could have I set my own goals. So if I wanted to, like, and some creators do that, it'd be like $13,000. Like, I'm just pulling that number out of nowhere. That's what I need to make a profit on this. That's what I'm going to ask for. But like, I want to make the book. I'm willing to pay a certain amount of money to make the book, and that's why I set the goal. But then after you start to approach your line of profitability, you're like, you're running harder, you know, like
Sure.
You have this limited time to hit it. So like, yeah, so I'm pretty consumed with that. And then I'm gonna take a trip to the UK for Thought Bubble in November.
Jealous.
And we'll have copies there because Anna's tabling. I'm gonna her choice if she wants to sell them, but I'm going to bring her a stack for her to have, so maybe she'll sell them at the show. And then after that, I'll figure out what the next business moves are. But I'm always writing, and I've got a ton of scripts I got multiple scripts out with the artists right now, so something's coming. I just don't know what it'll be next yet. But that was a great question, because it's one I'm also grappling with. Like, should I do the anthology next? What should I do next, basically? Like, that's always a question with Kickstarter creators, I think, is what's the next step?
Well, Zach, I'm glad we could think that through together. I'm glad I could help you through that. Just kidding.
I don't know if I figured anything out, but it's like, but it
I don't
did
know
help.
if we decided anything, but it's worth at least thinking out loud about.
Yeah.
But I want to also, you've already mentioned Anna, and you also mentioned Jared K. Fletcher, your designer. I do want to give a quick shout out as well to the colorist Brad Simpson, and then letterer Becca Carey as well. So I think this book looks incredible, and it's something that I wanted to sort of hone in on. But you said something really interesting a moment ago that I also want to touch on and pick your brain on. You mentioned that this could potentially hit a backer record for you. And at the time of this recording, which is on October 2nd, we are currently at 9,717. So is 10K the goal, or are you, I don't mean to be tacky, but
That's
like,
fine.
is there like a particular goal that you really hope that we get to?
328 backers. Like that is.
So you're looking for actual backer numbers.
Yeah.
Okay,
that
gotcha.
is literally it. Like the very first one I did, I did a Kickstarter 4 years ago before I was even really ready to really start going at it as a creator. And it hit 327 backers. Now that was like August 2020 during the everyone was home. Everyone was still on Twitter, like in one organized social media. And I had a huge following through Comics Bookcase. So it was kind of a leg up. And I also had like my brother's wife's siblings, all 4 of them backed it and stuff. So like, it's kind of a silly goal, but it would just mean so much to me to have even one backer higher than it's like a compulsive thing, but that's, I mean, and I think, not to jinx anything, but with the way the last day plays out, we will probably hit 10K. So that's nice. I don't want to downplay how great that is to have more funding to be able to finance comics immediately. But that's my personal like 4-minute mile or whatever. 328 backers. Yeah.
We're currently, I should probably give those updated numbers, just under 2 weeks away from the end date here. We're at 278 backers, which is still incredible. Like, I mean, I meant to say this earlier when we were talking about the Eisners in terms of like, you don't go in expecting to win, but like, I think it's more about the nomination when it comes to the Eisners. I know you probably agree with that too, that like, even if you don't win, the recognition from your peers, I think is probably the most important thing. And at the end of the day is probably the thing that means the most. So I think a very similar thing with this. Like if you, for some reason, don't hit 10K, which I know you will, as you said, I don't want to jinx it, but like, it's probably going to happen. And then like you being at 278, and if you don't hit that 320 mark that you're talking about here, I know you'll still be proud of this. And I know that as your friend, I'll still be proud of this project for you. So it's just interesting. I was just curious, like, cause I know being who you are. And again, I just assume that you were very goal oriented when it came to this project, something like this. I just want to kind of pick your brain and see, like, we all kind of have that goal. Like, here's a weird one for me too. Not that this is about me at all, but like over on Spotify, we're at like 820 in terms of listeners, like subscribers, I guess you would call them now. But like hitting that 1,000 mark over on Spotify is really important to me. And I don't think we're going to get there for a while, but once we do, that'll be a landmark for me that means something for some reason. You know what I mean?
It's exactly what I was just talking about. Cause like 820 is so many subscribers. like you've already done really well and you have a great show, but I get it. Like we've all been by, the way social media likes it, we've all been put in this like prison of, productivity connected to black and white numbers. So it's like, we're just prisoners of that, you and I, like with our picking these things, be like, well, 326 is clearly not as good as 327 was, so I lost,
Right. I lost this battle of one.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me ask you a little bit about the story here. So, of course, as I said earlier, it's sort of being pitched as this like grindhouse horror comic. And the first thing that came to my brain was that this is how I know that we are friends and that we like a similar thing. Because when I think of grindhouse, I think of like this. Of course, there is the movie Grindhouse, like the 2-part.
Yeah, the Tarantino Rodriguez.
The Tarantino, the 2-part story of Grindhouse and Planet Terror. So I'm just curious, and this is sort of a broad, simple question, but like, what do you think it is about like Grindhouse? Not only just Grindhouse cinema, but specifically Grindhouse. Again, that Robert Rodriguez sort of Machete, From Dusk Till Dawn sort of brand of film. Why is that exciting to you as a viewer and as a creator? Why do you think that folks like us love that genre?
It's pretty self-aware, I feel like. Like I think it's two things. It's pretty self-aware. It knows it's entertaining, but I think it's also a little more flexible. Like those sort of movies can go on a dime from ridiculous to serious, and it all fits in the same bucket. Like, I don't know why they quite function that way. I think our book functions that way as well. Like, from one page to the next, we can be doing really over the top gore and then go right into like a journalism procedural, and it all holds together well. But yeah, what draws me to it is I think there's less limits to it. You know what I mean? Like, it just kind of gives you more tools. And what we did is, like, on the goriest page in the whole book is page 2. And maybe it doesn't. It definitely doesn't help me when I'm tabling, because people will pick it up and look at those early pages and be like, not for me. But it does like set the tone right away. And I think after page 2, we can do whatever we want, because we've already established that this is pulp and this is over the top, and anything goes in our world. So I think that's what drew us to it. And I just think, like, Anna's artwork is also capable of, like, it's not photorealistic, but she's just so good at exaggerating in the right places. And so I think it plays really well to her strength. I mean, she's a comics genius, so like most stuff will play to her strengths, but I think in particular Grindhouse plays really well to her strengths as an artist.
Sure. Let me ask you this to build off that there. What was it about Anna's art before you guys, I guess maybe this is a two-parter here then, I guess. How did you get connected to Anna firstly? And we may have talked about this a little bit in our previous conversation, but just for the layman, and I guess me being part of the layman, how did you guys get connected initially? And then was there any particular piece of work or anything that she sort of alluded to when you guys first started talking about this project that made her perfect as a collaborator for Macabre Valley?
So I became a fan of hers like in 2020. I think that was when she was featured. Broken Frontier does this thing. It's a UK-based indie comics website where they highlight 6 artists to watch, and she was one of them. And I don't know if that's how I first saw her work, but it was somehow she was on Twitter also. And then when I was doing my Next Door comic, it was very poorly planned. We rushed the launch and we had no variant cover. And I reached out to her last minute, and she did one in like 3 days, and it saved our campaign. Like, that comic was a neighborhood crime comic, which is a tough thing to sell, and it had a sense of humor, which made it even harder to sell. And her cover, though, captured, like, just from one email, she knew what we were going for and captured it perfectly with this cover. It's like a real estate sign that's got all like 20 different weapons sticking out of it and a dog peeing on it. And like, people love that cover so much, and it changed the whole momentum of that Kickstarter campaign. So in the back of my head, I'd always thought about, like, well, imagine the reaction of readers if we could collaborate on a full comic. And then I also knew just from following her on Instagram that she drew amazing dogs. Like she'd drawn her own dog. She'd drawn a beer can label that had the owner of OK Comics, this comic book store in Leeds, on it, and he had a dog. She drew a lot of really good dogs. And for like a student project or something like that, she'd drawn an illustration of out of a Cormac McCarthy novel. And so I was like, I had this werewolf idea. She could draw Western stuff, a gritty kind of Southern Gothic Cormac McCarthy stuff, and dogs. And then as I was thinking about who the artist would be for the project, like almost serendipitous, she posted on Instagram like, "Hey, I'm available for work right now. I could really use some work." And I sent the email that day, and she did the 8-page short. So it felt like a little bit of like perfect timing as well.
Yeah, there's a certain amount of, and I've heard this. I've actually talking to creators here on the show. They often say it's hard work and luck. You know, like that's how you get into comics a lot of times. Is it's the serendipity, like you said. Like there's a certain amount of just like right place, right time, right voice at the right time too. Like you could be the most talented writer or artist ever, but if like your voice doesn't necessarily speak to what
the moment,
the consumer, or to the moment, right? Like if you don't necessarily have that, that direct line, sometimes it doesn't work out right at that exact time. And then I guess you keep perfectly setting me up for this. I'm just curious, with Anna being over the UK, and this book, this first issue, I'll say, is so perfectly baked into like that sort of Southeast Texas, like that sort of area right there on the border. You mentioned that your wife lived in El Paso for a bit. And I'm just curious, when you were giving Anna references to that area and sort of like, Because I feel like South Texas is almost its own character in this first issue.
Yeah,
purposefully.
definitely. The location does a lot of the horror for us. Like,
right.
Yeah.
In the same way that I sort of think that like Gotham is almost a character in a lot of Batman stories. How did you properly give Anna that reference for this area and sort of the overall mood that this area offers?
Yeah, so I lived in McAllen, Texas, which is in an area called the Rio Grande Valley, which is 3.5 hours south of San Antonio, on the border with Mexico and on the coast of the Gulf by South Padre Island. I lived there for almost 5 years and worked at the newspaper in McAllen. And that's what a lot of this is. That's almost what most of the setting is based on. And when I was giving her references, I used a lot, like one of the big reference points and one of the pages I think really sets the tone for what we did is the bar page. And I sent her references off this bar that I actually used to go to's Instagram page, which hadn't been updated since like 2015. So it's like, it's not AI, which is a problem with finding reference artwork these days. And it's not a location that anyone has seen often because it's a roadhouse bar near the border's dormant Instagram. So she got a lot of photographs like that, not necessarily were anything that I'd taken, but were just, these really insular photographs I knew about of the Rio Grande Valley. And I sent her some of the links to like newspaper stories I'd done. And then I've also asked her this question, and my wife, who's from Texas, was blown away by how much the book looks like Texas. How did you do that? Never having been to Texas, you know?
That's kind of the same question I have here. Honestly,
and it feels almost as like she's like, well, I'm an artist. Like I look at things and draw them, you know, like is kind of the short answer. But she referenced movies like No Country for Old Men and Paris, Texas, and I think she's like a country music fan too. Like she really likes Townes Van Zandt and like sort of that kind of stuff. So she had these ideas of the region that she'd been had been in her head for a while. But yeah, I mean, I just think it's incredible. And also there's like a weird thing where UK artists are super good at drawing Texas. Like Steve Dillon and Preacher and Jacob Phillips and That Texas Blood. Hopefully our book gets some run and he can put Anna up there, and that's 3, and that constitutes a trend.
I wonder if like that's it's interesting. Cause like you say this, you could say the same thing about like New York. I think a lot of, you know, you think of like people who are able to draw New York, a lot of times the references will give you enough of a sort of view of the city. Although I will say that like, and I found this being in New York next week, I know I'll feel it then too, is that like, there's honestly almost nothing like sort of just being there.
Yeah.
Right? Like there is a certain amount
for sure. Yeah.
Right. You just sort of miss it unless you've actually physically been there. And it's always so impressive when people can do that without, you know, like, I think of like, going back to like Frank Miller in the 80s, he talked about like, in order to get in the headspace of Daredevil, he like would go up on rooftops in Brooklyn, just sort of like feel like smell the smoke and like feel the cold of being on a rooftop and all these things that he had to sort of put his headspace into to do it.
Well, I will say that one thing that worked out really well was, as I'd had the idea for this comic, I had to go to San Antonio for work. So I was in San Antonio for a 4-day conference. And the conference activities, I'm really bad at schmoozing at like after conference happy hours. Like I hate it. So the conference would end at like 4:00 and I don't think my company will listen to this, but you're supposed to go to these like happy hours and like hobnob. And I'd duck in, but like I also don't drink. So I would be back. Basically, I'd be back in my hotel room early, and I started writing at night in San Antonio. And while San Antonio is not the Rio Grande Valley proper, it is the like biggest American city close to it, and so some of the flavor is there. So all these memories of my time there started coming back to me when I was in San Antonio. And I wrote I wrote all the first 8 pages in that hotel room in San Antonio at like the Embassy Suites or something, a block from the Alamo. It's like, so it did really help to be there. Yeah. And to be walking around San Antonio, which is a city I did spend a lot of time in when I was living in McAllen, because you drive up there on a Saturday or whatever. So yeah, there is definitely something to that.
Yeah. I actually just did the same exact thing a couple days ago when I was in Las Vegas. I was there for a work trip, and I can do the glad hand thing, like when it's necessary. I know how
I feel like you're super good at it.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
I mean, I can.
But
I
you
have
maybe
the
don't
ability.
like it.
Right. It's exactly that.
Yeah.
It's like I will do enough to sort of, it's almost like that. I don't know if you're a fan of The Office, but it's like that episode where they have the pool party and Jim's like, I'm going to get a picture. I'm going to say hi to everybody and I'm going to leave by 8, you know?
Yeah.
That's what I like to do too. And I did that like I think it was Monday night when I was there in Vegas for a roofing expo. I popped in to Top Golf. Why we go to Top Golf in Vegas? I don't know. But I pop in, I say hi, I make an impression, then I go to Alternate Reality, the comic store there in Vegas, because that's what I want to do.
Yeah,
you know
yeah.
I mean?
I always do that on work trips too. I try to get a good meal and go to a comic book store when I travel for
Right.
work. Yeah, those are the two things.
Exactly. Again, I cut from the same cloth. It's one of those things that, you know, when you're able to travel the way that I think you and I can sometimes for these trips, that's what we do. We'll try to find a place that we've never eaten before, and we go to a comic store / bookstore or / movie store that we've never been to. You know what I mean?
Something with physical media. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So Zach, we're sort of nearing the end of our conversation here about Macabre Valley, and it's been such a pleasure as always to talk about, you know, not only your career in journalism and all the success that you've had there at the Beat, but also you're doing, and I think I said this in the last time that we talked here on the show about the Death of Comics bookcase, and I feel like I try to remind you of this when we get to talk in person in those rare sort of those grateful moments that we do here at, you know, comic conventions and such. But like, you are doing it, you know, like you're totally doing it. And I know that like a lot of times that bridge over from whatever side comic thing you're doing into what I think a lot of us either want to do or maybe romantically dream about, which is writing the thing that we all love. You know, because a lot of times we get into these, this is a weird tangent, I apologize, but
No.
I think a lot of us get into podcasting, journalism, criticism, what have you, because we love the medium and almost like, again, romantically think about one day writing them, even if that's not ever a thing that we end up doing. You're doing it. And I think that that's not only impressive, and as your friend, I'm proud of you for doing it and doing it as well as you are. And I'm just curious, you know, at the point that you're in currently, again, with the success of Comics Bookcase and you talking about how you're sort of, you have your hand within multiple different avenues of writing, like creatively, I'll say, and not that journalism isn't creative, but like you're telling stories. Do you ever find yourself at any point eventually separating, you know, the journalism side with the Beat? And I'm not saying that you have to quit the Beat tomorrow, but like, down the road somewhere, do you ever think, hey, I'm a writer, like I am done, and I'm going to pan this question into a reference. I think of like Aubrey Sitterson, who was like an editor for a while over at Marvel. And like, I've had Aubrey on the show a couple times. I know you've probably talked to him a bit there at the Beat, and how like, he almost like doesn't even want to talk about editing at Marvel anymore because he is a writer now. Do you ever find yourself at some point getting to that point where like, I am a writer and this is what I do now and I'm happy with this?
Yeah, it's you know, I was really close a couple years ago to just being like, I felt like being perceived as a comics journalist was like working against me, like that people wouldn't take me seriously as a writer. But that was really with the benefit of some time, I think it was me, it was kind of a cop-out for me not having done enough work yet to be taken seriously as a writer. And what I found with these two projects is that I don't care. Like that if people want to see me as primarily comics journalist, that's fine. I'm still going to be writing these comics and trying to build an audience as a creator at the same time.
Sure.
So I kind of got past the like, I did think that way, like I should just be a writer, like, and then it'll go better for me or whatever. But then I just thought like, no, like I should just be a writer and keep writing and not care if I'm not seen that way. But I do still, I don't know if I'd say want to just write, but I'm not going to stop doing the Beat stuff until I have to. Like, I don't like right now. It's not taking time away from my writing. I mean, maybe it is a little bit, but the benefit it brings in of being able to talk to creators about their work and sort of be in places within the industry as a journalist and watch and learn about it is still really helpful for me. And then also the like discipline of the main thing I do at the Beat is the Top Comics to Buy column, where I read like 20 advanced review copies before release and pick out recommendations and list the new number ones and stuff. And that's like a forced continual market research project I'm embarking on. And not just market research, but research of the kind of comics I want to make and where I feel like they aren't being made by anybody. the exact tone I want. Like I think I'm really aware of what's coming out and what I want to contribute and what I'd like to make. So yeah, like I have a complicated relationship to that. Like, would it be better off to do this or not? I don't really know, but I'm going to keep doing this because I think it's important. And I got to a point where I was just think like, I'm going to write no matter what, even if people still see me as a journalist. Like, that's fine. They can see me that way, but I'm still going to do this.
Mm-hmm. I guess, again, I asked the question because I genuinely want to know, but also as someone who, this is something that I've often struggled with. And I think some of our podcasting friends have heard me complain about this in secrecy because I haven't really ever been upfront about it, is that like my goal at some point is to eventually make that transition over to writing. And I think sometimes, and I'm not saying I have the goods like you, but I want to give it that fair shot. And I think sometimes my creative juice or that bandwidth that you need to do something in that avenue is taken from the podcast, which I also love.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like it's one of those things where I think in order to do this over here, I may have to either take a break over with the podcast or quit it altogether.
I think I've been on the same journey, and I think what really helped was, I mean, that's why I stopped doing my website, because I could do less at the beat. I could still be a comics journalist and contribute in that way with it taking less time. So like, I think that there's a little bit, and maybe you'll have to do this. It's just like creating boundaries of like, this is the exact amount of podcasting I'm able to do and still feel like I have energy and time for my creative work. So it might involve a little bit of like doing things differently, scaling things back, but not giving it up altogether because you enjoy it. You think it's contributing to comics. You're meeting a lot of people. So yeah, it's a continual process to figure out how to manage it all better and make it all work in the exact ways that are best for you. And I also think that there's a thing where like, if I had more time, right? Like, it's not necessarily like realistic that I'm going to have writing for 8 hours would be great for me. Like, I might get frustrated with that amount of time and feel like psychologically feel like I'm under, like, I don't know. I've never had that luxury, but like, I think I carve out the time when I need it. And I'll do a thing where like, if I'm really cooking or like, if I have a script that's really coming along well, I do less for the beat that week. Like, I'm just in a position where I can be like, I follow the energy. I hope that's helpful for you. I feel like I kind of lost the thread towards the end there.
No, I get it. It is one of those weird, murky paths that I think you're doing extremely well. Like, you found, I think, like, again, maybe it's different from your perspective because you're going through it. But I think when I think of someone, and I think of like Griffin and Ethan over with, of course, Kill Your Darlings and such, like they were podcasters and now they're Eisner nominated as well, like they've done it, and they've made that transition over from being a podcaster or, again, I don't know what they would say in terms of journalism, but I would see them as sort of in that similar sort of camp, and they've made it over and now they're killing it as writers. Right. So like it can be done. And I think what you guys are doing is working, and it's just something, and I don't want people to hear this and go, oh my God, the Oblivion Bar is going away. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just I'm finding it sort of tough to like chase the things that I really want to do at some point and also have the bandwidth to do this thing that I also want there to be a good quality that I think comics and the Oblivion Bar and even Aaron, like my co-host, like they all deserve that amount of effort as well.
Yeah, so. I'll tell you just on a pure, I don't know if this is going to be interesting to anyone, but logistically, I would just make time to write every day. Like, even if it was only 15 minutes when I was starting, get the document up, play around with some stuff, and then expand. Like, my goal is always an hour minimum, and I just make sure I have that time in my schedule 5 days a week, maybe 6, on top of everything. And so I don't think you need to be like, I quit, I'm only going to write now, and that's all I do with all my time, because then it's like, I don't know, it's that's not for me. But but write every day if you can, even for just 15 minutes, and see how that's working for you. You could feel like an hour a day is enough. You need more time, less time, Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's an incredible advice. And I think that this, Zack, has been an incredible conversation. And I really hope people go check out Macabre Valley #1 over at Kickstarter. I'll have all the links in the show notes. That way people can not only follow you on social media, but also contribute. At the time of this release, and my hope is actually to get this out on Friday, so the next day. So that way people get enough time to not only listen to this conversation, but also get a chance to support this venture. Because I think what you and Anna and the entire team have done It's really exciting to, and again, I purposely didn't want to get into extreme spoilers with this issue because I think people should. I mean, and you're doing a pretty good job of like exposing just enough over on your social media so people can get excited about it.
I hope
without
so. Yeah.
fully spoiling it. But I do want people to check this out because I think what you guys are able to set up, I feel like I can already sort of read the tea leaves. Not only, I don't think I can tell where it's going, but I know that you guys have a plan of where this is going. And it's not just with a werewolf priest. You know what I mean?
No.
Like there's something else around the corner.
We're doing Southwestern Monster of the Week. So like its first issue is Werewolf Priest. The next issue is something totally different. But the Werewolf Priest might come back. Who knows? We'll see.
One small question before I get you out of here, Zach. Can you, because I know you probably have this in your belt, just give me a comic this year. It doesn't necessarily have to be the best. It doesn't have to be your favorite, but like give me a comic that's come out this year, and it could be ongoing. It could be big 2. It could be drawn quarterly. It could be whatever. I don't care. Like, give me a comic that you think should be on people's radar. That's not Drome, because we already talked about Drome.
You saw me. Yeah, it's like
that's right. Is there a comic this year that you think people should be paying attention to?
Well, I could go on and on about Out of Alcatraz. Did you read Out of Alcatraz?
Tyler Crook is one of my I mean, he is one of my current all-time favorites working right now.
All right,
absolutely.
Let's go with that one then. It's a nice 4-issue miniseries. It tells a complete story. I guess you could call it historical fiction because it is based on a real breakout where the guys were never found and who knows what they did. So this book kind of posits what they did, and it ends so well. Like I won't say anything else about it, but I just think it's like a really fantastic 4-issue miniseries that I haven't done my best of 2025 list, but that one and Drome are the ones I go to immediately. And if especially if you're talking books that I feel like are not on enough people's radar, that one's getting a nice hardcover too. They've shown it on photos of it on social media. So that could be a big book towards the end of the year that more people read and should read because it's excellent.
We've had Chris Cantwell and Tyler Crook on the show. I think it was prior to the release of issue 1. And I totally agree. That's, again, I keep saying it, but I'll say it one more time. The cut from the same cloth, sort of think tank there. It's like, it's both of those. It's Drome, Out of Alcatraz. And the one I like to often, and it's funny, when I was at New York or San Diego a couple months ago, Brian K. Vaughan does an incredible job of recommending books on his newsletter, Exploding Giraffes. And I just complimented on it when I got to meet him at San Diego again. And I was like, you do an incredible job. And I think it was actually I found in from one of his sort of like, here's books you should know about. And he goes, well, what's a book that you are really loving right now? Like he just sort of like sprang this very obvious question on me that I was not prepared for. And the one that came to mind immediately was Assorted Crisis Events. From Dennis Camp and Eric Zawalski over at Image Comics. And I'll stick with that too. I think Assorted Crisis Events, and I think maybe a companion piece of that, of course, is Absolute Martian Manhunter. Both of those those stories I think are well worth people's time.
Yeah, those are fantastic comics.
Well, go ahead. What were you gonna say?
Yeah, it's unfair that Brian K. Vaughan is so good at writing comics and also recommending them because he has a great knack for figuring out books that haven't gotten enough attention, especially. I have one more comic to throw out.
Sure, please.
Have you read Paranoid Gardens? It's like Gerard Way and Chris Weston. They did it for Dark Horse. So weird. That's one I think to have on your radar. Chris Weston is an excellent artist, and the book is gorgeous and very strange. So
wow. Okay.
If you liked Gerard Way's Doom Patrol run, you'll like this comic.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Gerard Way. I mean, obviously, My Chemical Romance, need I say more, but also the stuff he's done with Umbrella Academy. And then this is on my radar. That the first thing I'm going to do is, as soon as we hop off here, is get that pre-ordered, or not pre-ordered, I guess special ordered now, and get that eventually that physical copy.
The trade is fun too. It has like, I think the cover has a little cutout, so get the trade. Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. I like that. Yeah. Gerard is often with his work. I think Doom Patrol did this a little bit, but definitely Umbrella Academy. They're often trying to find fun. Dark Horse is good at this. Fun marketing. I won't say like ploys or like it just like they find fun ways to sort of market their books, I think.
Well, being in My Chemical Romance is a great marketing move for his comics.
Right. Yeah, I think that's a pretty good sort of pillar.
He nailed that one. Yeah.
Well, Zach, like I said earlier, what a pleasure it's been having you here on the show. Again. Very excited.
We'll have to hang out at New York Comic Con for sure. Let's get dinner or something.
I don't want this to be one of those things where we've done this for the last, I think, 2 or 3 shows where we'll be like, dude, I want to see you while we're there. And then we pick 10 minutes the last day to see each other. So let's for real, like, get together, and we'll even have to get Brad and Lisa or whoever else with us to again, like you said, let's just get dinner and talk, about whatever.
Get pizza. I'm a New Yorker now, so
there you go. You know all the places.
Yeah, not in that area at all, but but I have an app. There's an app you use locally to find places to eat. So
perfect. Well, one more thing before we get out of here. How do folks find you on? I'll have links to everything, but is there anything that you want to sort of broadcast? Blast before we get you out of here?
Yeah, please go to my website, comicsbookcase.com, click the newsletter tab and sign up for my newsletter. It's where you'll get all of up-to-date information about both my comics criticism and the comics I'm writing. And I also commission an artist every month to do their take on one of my characters. And we have some really awesome artists coming up that I will tell you about, Chris, when we're done recording. So
I can't believe we are getting this at the very, very end. But 2 of my favorite people in comics, Tony McMillan and John J. Pearson, both. Tony McMillan has a print, but John J. Pearson has a cover, which I, of course, backed on Kickstarter.
Thank you.
Incredible job getting not only just, of course, Anna with her cover, but those 2 as well. Clearly, you have your thumb on the pulse when it comes to that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I hope so. We like all the same stuff, though. So
you're going to get a Daniel Warren Johnson cover tomorrow and be like, of course, that makes sense. All right, Zach. Well, what a pleasure, man. Can't wait to see you in New York. And again, congratulations on all your success here with Macabre Valley, Death of Comics Bookcase, all the things.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me back. I appreciate it.